4 o'clock. So welcome everybody to the first South African and Namibian GED webinar. We're really very excited to be hosting this webinar today. We've got unbelievable speakers and panelists here to answer all your questions that you may have, whether you're a prospective GED student considering the GED, or whether you're an existing GED student and have questions, or whether you're already a GED graduate and want to know what the next steps are. Our speakers are as follows. Firstly, we have C.T. Turner. He's the Vice President of Global Operations for the GED, as well as the Managing Director of GED International. And so everything that happens in South Africa and outside of the US falls under CT. Secondly, and a very special lady that I met in Bangkok last year when I went for our GED International seminar, live seminar in those days. She is the Senior Test Product Development Manager at GED Testing Services, and she is able to answer and tell you all about the GED test and how it works, seeing that she was part of the team that actually developed the tests. And then we have Lindsay Calder. Lindsay Calder is our Business Development Manager for GED South Africa and Namibia. She knows all about the landscape of the GED, specifically relating to South Africa and to Namibia, and she will be answering and telling you all about what's happening with the GED in South Africa and Namibia. And so our first speaker tonight, or this afternoon, is C.T. Turner, and over to you, C.T.
Great, thanks for having me, Sean, and thanks everyone for joining. Again, I'm C.T. Turner, Vice President of Global Operations and Managing Director of GED International. Whether your aspirations and career paths take you to universities at home or abroad, the GED program is here to help you achieve your dreams. Our organization has a long and established history of helping students earn a US 12th grade level diploma or higher secondary certificate. Since our founding in 1942, we've helped more than 20 million learners earn their GED certificates. This past year, students just like you in more than 90 countries use the GED program to enter universities. GED graduates have been accepted into and have graduated from many top-tier US universities, such as Stanford University, University of California, and many others. GED graduates are welcomed in virtually any and all American universities. They've also attended universities in countries such as Canada, China, and Australia, across Europe and Asia, and also in their home countries. GED graduates have gone on to achieve really great things. They've included engineers and astronauts, US ambassadors and governors, university professors, doctors, many successful entrepreneurs and business owners. They've included journalists and world famous athletes as well. You can find GED graduates in virtually every profession and industry. There are a few unique programs and benefits that I thought you all should know about the GED program. First, after passing the exam, you're awarded a US 12th grade level certificate from the District of Columbia that is recognized internationally. Second, the program emphasizes competency over strict instruction time formula. That means that students sit for exams when they're ready, and they sit for those exams when their teachers say that they're ready. It's also a more flexible and affordable program compared to other international study programs. We know that life gets really hectic and things aren't always predictable. So the program allows students to study at home and have flexible test hours. So the programs can vary. They can be in person, they can be self-study, self-paced, lots of different options. But basically, when you're ready and you have the competency and you're ready to sit for the exam, you can go do that. We also have a GED Ready mock exam that's highly predictive of what your GED scores will be. So that's always helpful before you sit for the exam. Basically, whatever your dream career is, I encourage you to learn more about our GED program. You can visit the website at GED.com. There are also some local South African Facebook pages and websites as well. You can talk to your local authorized GED prep partner and the folks on the webinar today, and they can get you more information about the program. The program can help you take the next important step in your journey to achieve your dreams and help change your community and your world. Thanks for having me.
Wow, great. Thank you, CT. The next speaker, and she's going to be telling us all about the actual tests themselves, and very importantly is what is the test all about, and how does it work, and why did the GED release a new test a couple of years ago? Very important, as I believe is a big part of it is critical thinking skills that are now part and parcel of the test. And questions that we get all the time is all about the RLA and the essay component. And so I'm going to ask Anne to elaborate on that for us.
I'm going to share my screen.
Thank you.
And then I'll begin. Oh. All right, sounds good. Thank you for having me here today. I understand it's 4 o'clock your time. It's 10 o'clock in the morning DC time here. I'm located in Washington, DC. I'm going to talk today about some tools and strategies to help you perform better on the extended response portion of the test. So as we were introduced, my name is Ann Evers, and I'm on the assessment services team over here at GED Testing Service in Washington, DC. I'm going to start off with just exploring the GED test, and then I'm going to move on down into RLA specifically today. So the purpose of the GED test is not just only for a high school equivalency credential, but it's also to help prepare students get into workforce training programs and post-secondary education. And also it provides actionable information about their strengths and weaknesses. As we were preparing the new test, we really wanted to think about those essential skills, 21st century skills, if you may. We really wanted to include those and embed those skills into this skills-based test. So critical thinking skills and problem-solving skills are very important today, and those are found over all 4 content areas. That's math, science, social studies, and RLA. Close reading skills are really important, and you need to use those on all of the 4 content areas. I'm going to get deeper into that in a second. And then evidence-based writing skills is only really tested on the RLA test because that's the only place where we have a writing component. So let's go a little deeper into RLA. So there's 3 parts of the RLA. The ER, or the extended response, is 45 minutes, and you can find it in the second part. It's timed separately, so you want to make sure that you use up all of that time because it does not go over into the third part. But after you finish your ER, you get a 10-minute break. And so all in all, it's 150 minutes in total time. There's different kinds of item types on the test as well as the extended response. So let's start with close reading skills. You might be wondering what that could be. It does not mean getting closer to the screen or reading the text really close. You know, that could be funny. But actually, it's a careful, purposeful rereading of the text. So you can appreciate as you take the test or you're reading something, everybody just wants to get to the finish line. Everyone just wants to get it over and done with. Well, close reading and rereading really helps students understand why we're reading in the first place, which adds to them to think critically about what they're reading and understanding what they're reading. This is the skill that's found in higher education in the workplace all the time. And especially in our media saturated world that we live in today, some could actually call this a survival skill. So what do close readers look like? Well, I start off with they reread what they're reading. They focus on the text, trying to understand it. They're asking questions, and I'm going to share some of those questions with you in a bit. They pay attention to the language to uncover the deeper meaning. So a not so closer reader, they just read it. They read it once, they get to the end of the finish line, and they might be thinking about what they're going to do after the test or something like that. And then as a result, they're only reading at face value. They're ignoring those syntax clues, And as a result, they're only really understanding at a surface level. So I'm going to share with you 10 close reader questions that you as a reader could employ every day, or as a teacher, you can use these in your classroom. I'm going to focus on 3 specific ones here that can really link into the extended response, which we're talking about in a second. So when you're reading these passages that are presented in the extended response, you really want to think, who is the audience for this text? And why did the author write the text? And what does the author mean by exactly? So you can, I'm going to post this deck afterwards so you can use these and look at these later on. I'm going through them pretty fast, but you can look at them later and use them in your classroom. Let's look at the extended response. And I say it's not your average essay. It is not, we don't want to know what you did last summer. Well, then what is it? What is evidence-based argumentative writing? This could be you thinking right now. This quotation actually sums it up pretty nicely, and then we'll unpack it in a bit. The goal of making an argument is to convince an audience of the rightness of the claims being made using logical reasoning and relevant evidence, evidence-based argumentative writing. So why did we put the extended response on the test? So we really want you to demonstrate that you know what you've read. This is that close reading that we just talked about. We want to see that you know writing conventions in English and the ability to use your own words to communicate. So on the test, if you just copy and paste from the passage, that doesn't cut it. What we want you to do is to demonstrate that you can paraphrase or use quotations. And more importantly, the ability to use evidence to build arguments. Evidence is a very important part of evidence-based argumentative writing. Here's the task. What the student is presented with is 2 passages, and the passages are 2 different viewpoints on the same topic, opposing viewpoints. So your task is to analyze both of these passages. You need to decide which argument has more convincing evidence, not the one that you think is the right answer. You have to look at the evidence, and then you have to explain in your own words why the evidence supports your choice. I keep repeating the word evidence, so let's look a little deeper into evidence. You need to figure out how to determine which is strong evidence and weak evidence in order to support your claim. So when you're reading, remember those important close reading questions, add to your quadra, do they quote research or experts to support their case? Do they use reliable sources? Do they back up their claims with relevant facts? And do their conclusions make sense logically? Well, the other opposing one probably has vague references, unnamed sources, irrelevant details, and flawed reasoning. This is the extended response on the test. You can see that we've scaffolded. We want you to read, we want you to plan, and then write. You're going to write in this box. Write as much as you can, because the box expands and you scroll down. The instructions are always going to be on the left-hand side here. And I want to draw your attention to this bullet point. This is the quintessential bullet point that you really need to work on as a student or in a classroom. Develop your own argument in which you explain how one position is better supported than the other. And then how much do you write? There is no word count on the box. So write about 4 to 7 paragraphs of 3 to 7 sentences each. You might notice that there's bolding. This is not a mistake. I did this purposefully. This is for those skimmers in us who like to skim and scan. So let's read along with me and you'll understand. Read page 2, tab above. Read 2 texts, different views. Both writers argue their position correct. So if you look and you follow my instructions, look at the page 2 above. In the page 2, that's where you'll find all of the 2 passages, and then you will write. Finally, I just want to leave this with you. This is a little 3-minute video, which contains a lot of what I've just included here and a little bit more on how to perform well on the ER. Thank you. Oh, stop sharing.
Wow. Anne, thank you so much. it's always great to get some tips on how to do a better essay and how to pass the exam in a much better way. Thank you so much. Before we move on to Lindsay and start discussing South Africa and Namibia specifically, just want to draw your attention to the fact that we're streaming live on Facebook. And so firstly, on the Facebook page that you're on right now, that's where we post all the latest up-to-date information on the GED and everything that's going on with the GED in South Africa. And so please, if you haven't already, just click on like so that you can follow all the information relating to the GED. Secondly, I'm sure you may have some questions already, either for CT or for Anne or coming up for Lindsay. And so please, under the video, you can make a comment under the live video. So please, in the comments facility, type in all your questions. We will be monitoring the questions. And after Lindsay speaks, we will be taking live questions and answering them with the respective panelists. And so I'm going to hand over to Lindsay, who's going to talk all about the GED in South Africa and Namibia.
Thanks so much. So the GED in South Africa has definitely seen exponential growth over the last 5 years. And with that growth, so has come the growth of the number of testing centers that are available in South Africa. So previously there was one testing center. Now students have the option to test at any of the 40 Boston GED accredited Pearson VUE testing centers around South Africa. In Namibia, we currently have one testing center that's in Windhoek, but we will come back to Namibia. I just want to first start talking on South Africa, because with South Africa, we've had quite a lot of changes in the last, particularly in the last 3 years. And with these changes, we've been engaging a lot with SAQA, being the South African Qualifications Authority, USAF, who's University of South Africa, and Umalusi. I'm not sure if you're aware, or I'm sure a lot of you are, at the end of last year, so from the 31st of December last year, University of South Africa, or USAF, they stopped accepting applications from South African GED students for foreign conditional exemption. What that means is it adds an extra hurdle for students who want to go on to university and study a degree, as it's a lot more difficult to get straight into a degree program without that certificate of foreign conditional exemption. Now, while there is that extra hurdle, it doesn't mean that a student can't. What it just means is that we would advise students to go and do an NQF level 5 certificate, which is one level below a degree. And on completion of that, they can then look at applying for a degree program. As part of our engagement with SAQA, USAF, and Umalusi, we are in the process of trying to register the GED on the NQF. That registration would then take away the need for foreign conditional exemption or all these extra hurdles that GED students are needing to jump through. But the delay in the process has been that formally the law was that foreign qualifications couldn't register on the NQF. Same for the GED, same for Cambridge. Now, we've been instrumental in them drafting an amendment bill, and that amendment bill has allowed SAQA and USAF and Umalusi to create a process in which foreign qualifications can register on the NQF. As with changing any laws in the country, it is a long process, but it is in process. Unfortunately, COVID-19 has slowed everything down a little bit more, but we are continuing to engage with SAQA, USAF, and Umalusi, and as any developments happen, so we will update everyone through the GED Facebook page. Now, if we jump to Namibia, Namibia has really started to grow in the last year or two. We have had a test center accredited to offer the tests in Namibia, and we have engaged with the Namibian Qualifications Authority, who have evaluated the GED at NQF level 4, which is the same as what SAQA evaluated in South Africa. And we are in contact with the universities to raise awareness of who the GED is, what it is, so that students, when they apply to a university in Namibia, the university admissions departments already know about the GED and who we are. So we are the local office for the GED, so we are here for students. If a student has any GED related query, or they have an operational issue and they're not coming right, they're welcome to contact us. We have a GED South Africa website with South African Namibia relevant information on it. And on that website, on the frequently asked questions page, we updating it all the time with procedures to follow for students. So procedures in terms of, I have a duplicate GED profile, what do I do? You know, how do I apply to SACWA for my certificate of evaluation? How do I apply to the NQA? It's all on there, as well as the additional resources to help when you're preparing for your GED. So before you contact us with a query, we always suggest you go to that frequently asked questions page, because we've really tried to load as much information as possible on there. Information such as, can the GED scores be converted to percentages, which they can't. America does not work like that. On the website also is the GED Ready voucher. This is a voucher we highly recommend all GED students to buy. Why? Because it's the official GED practice test. Just like the prelim exams for grade 12 in South Africa, or the mock exams, it is the official practice test, and it is a brilliant indicator on whether a student is ready to write their GED test and whether they will pass should they write. And it's a lot cheaper than $75, and it really prepares you. Now, when you're going to write your test, please, guys, this is very, very important. On the day of your test, you need to take your ID that includes your full name, your date of birth, your photo, and your signature. Those ID requirements must match your GED profile. If you do not have the correct ID, or they do not match your GED profile, you will not be allowed to write, and you will forfeit your $75 exam fee. It's very important. And we are trying to stress this to students, because it really breaks our heart when a student goes to write their test and they're not allowed to write. When you're going to write, just remember your maths test, you're not allowed to take a calculator into your test. There will be an on-screen calculator that you can use. And in the GED resources, there is a guide on the on-screen calculator, so you can practice using it before your test. We're really here to support students, and we really encourage students to practice and get comfortable with the format of the test before they go and test. Just remember, if you need any updates, the GED Facebook page or ged.org.za, all our contact details are there, and we are here to help you.
Thanks, Lindsay. That's a lot of information that you just relayed there. But the video, the live streaming is being recorded, and so you can always go back and rewind Lindsay or Anne or CT and replay them and learn everything that you need to know. I'm going to share on my screen just some contact information, and I'm going to leave this up while we work through some questions that we have received from everybody. So CT, this is a question for you. This question's from Palesa Zulu. She says, which countries other than South Africa and the USA accept the GED as a high school equivalency? Is Swaziland and Botswana part of that list?
Actually, Sean or Lindsay might know better on the very last part of that. What I can say in general is the acceptance of the GED credential really depends on the country. So I know that in South Africa, it's typical that the government approves something, all universities abide by that policy. That's not always true in other countries. In many places, university systems may determine on acceptance of GED graduates. In many places, the universities themselves will determine qualifications and accept GED graduates. What I can say is there are GED graduates in countries all across the world. We've had several countries where it's accepted. Malaysia is a country where it's widely accepted by universities. Thailand is another country. Students are in many countries and then they go to other countries. So a lot of students in Asia will end up going to universities in China. They'll go to universities all over the place. And so I would just say the best thing to do is just check the universities that you're interested in, find out the information from them. But again, widely available, especially, in the US particularly, and many countries. Just you have to do a little bit of due diligence. Sean and Lindsay, I think you all can probably give a little bit more information about the 2 African countries specifically that the viewer had asked about.
Okay, thank you. Lindsay, do you have any feedback on Swaziland and Botswana?
Well, definitely. A lot of African countries generally go back to, they want an equivalency similar to Namibia, and they want it obviously accredited in its country of origin, which GED is. So what they would normally do is a lot of the countries look to South Africa for guidance in terms of which level to equate it to. So with SACWA equating it to NQF level 4, so Namibia equated it to NQF level 4, and the Botswana Qualifications Authority, BQA, would probably do the same as Swaziland. I know Swaziland very much looks to South Africa for guidance on levels.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lindsay. And here's a question for you. Angela says, is it true that the spelling is not considered when marking the RLA writing test or essay?
So the RLA-ER is scored based on 3 traits. So we're looking at that argumentative writing piece, how you're structuring and organizing your thoughts, and then the writing component of the English language conventions. Within there, we have specifics like homonyms, if you're understanding how to write those kinds of things. But it's understood that 45 minutes and everything we're asking you to do is going to produce what we call a draft on the go kind of writing. Spelling, therefore, is not scored specifically. However, if you have to try to phonetically spell out a word, try your best, but you're not going to be dinged. It's only if you're not communicating, I can't communicate, you're not communicating clearly, then you would, obviously we can't score what we can't read. So I would say don't hum and haw over specific little spelling. Try your best, focus on communicating your ideas clearly to us.
Great, thank you. I don't know if this question needs to go to CT or to Anne. I'll leave it to the 2 of you to fight it out. But the question here is from Nicola. She's concerned because the GED pass rate is above 70%, and her son is currently only achieving about 50% in the South African syllabus or the South African curriculum.
Punt to CT.
All right. So the 50%, 70%, I'd say you'd have to get a good indicator of sort of where you're at. And GED Ready is a good indicator of that. So I think taking a GED Ready exam, it's highly predictive of how you'll prepare or how you'll do on the test. And so it has really clear levels, need to study more, kind of in that middle range. You definitely need to remediate. Then there's the likely to pass category. So I think that will give you a better idea of sitting for the exam. The other thing I'll say is that often students in countries will take GED Ready exams before they sit for the exam. So again, they're going to know if they're prepared. So the pass rate might look a little bit higher on the GED exam at times, but that's because students are remediating and making sure that they're ready before they go and sit for the exam. So I hope that's a helpful answer.
And just to clarify as well, we don't work with percentage pass marks either. So it may look like it's above 70%, but it doesn't work like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Each individual test has a series of questions and it's awarded different points. Those are weighted, and then you come up with a score from the GED testing service on that particular test. And then we just basically count the number of students who have taken the test and the number of students who have passed the test, calculate the pass rate that way. So it's a little bit different maybe than what you're thinking in terms of the 50% for the local curriculum.
Great. Thanks, CT. Here, Lindsay, here's a question for you. Do you need a grade 12 certificate before you can apply for the GED?
No, the GED is considered to be closely comparable to the grade 12. So you would do it instead of doing the grade 12.
Okay, good. And another question from Natasha. I would like to know what documents are required to write an exam, as I only have the old green ID book.
Okay, so the old green ID book doesn't include a signature. So if you don't have a bank card that has your name on the front and the signature strip at the back, then we recommend you go to a police station and get an affidavit confirming that it's your signature, and you sign it in front of them and they will do it. And then you would take both with you. Obviously, the new Smart ID has all the requirements, so you just need your Smart ID. But
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, again, for CT or for Anne, you can choose. I guess this is, I'm just going to summarize a whole bunch of questions that have come through regarding accommodations. So one of the questions is, can you do the GED exam verbally? Another one is, are accommodations made in the test for dyslexic students? Can you do a read aloud facility, speech to text, extra time, etc.? Maybe you could just speak about accommodations in general.
I can speak about what we have in the States. CT, are they the same accommodations?
Pretty much.
Okay. So yes, read aloud, not speech to text. Extra time, definitely. Those are available. If they need a separate room, those kinds of things are available. But just not JAWS or anything like that. But accommodations, we definitely have built that into our policies.
And for accommodations, students would apply through their GED.com profile. They need the medical reports to substantiate the application for an accommodation. And it's also very important if you need like a reader and that's a special room, that your test center has the facilities, because obviously then you need your own room. So it's always important to check also that the test center where you want to write has the facilities to be able to accommodate you.
So Sean, that was a Lindsay question.
Go ahead, Ann.
Sean, that was a Lindsay question.
There we go. Lindsay knows her stuff. And this is a question for you. And I don't know if this is maybe too detailed of a question for you to answer straight away, or if you could maybe send us in the right direction to get more information on this. But Michaela Fourie is asking, how is the ER or the essay scored?
Right, so I was trying to include that in my last question too, my answer, where we have 3 traits. It's a rubric that it's scored on with 3 traits, and each time the marker scorer reviews it, they literally look at it through the different traits. So the way that I like to say to people very easily is, you put on 1 pair of sunglasses for trait number 1 and you read for those specific argumentative writing. Then you take those off and you put trait 2 sunglasses on and you read to understand how the organization of that writing is. And then you take those off and you put the 3rd pair of sunglasses on and you read to make sure that the writing conventions are correct. So the English language. So how it's scored, it's actually automated scoring for the ER, but the GED Ready, and this is very important for teachers to know out there and students alike, that the GED Ready is not scored automatically. What it needs is a teacher to score it. So on GED.com, we created a scoring tool, which essentially does my sunglasses, but in an automated kind of way. So you're required to go down, you read your student's response, and then you would go down and you would score it based on the dimensions that are laid out there. And you give it a score of 0, 1, or 2. At the end, the scoring tool will pop out a result for you and then give you feedback as a teacher. That's on the teacher side. But for a student to know that it's scored, it's also very valuable to know. So basically, think about it when I presented about the ER, argumentative writing, how is your argument? How are you organizing your thoughts? And number 2, and number 3, how is your English language skills?
Just to piggyback on that, or make sure it's really clear. The GED Ready is scored automatically. The only thing in GED Ready that isn't is the ER extended response, or the essay portion. So I think that's just really important to take away. And then the other thing I was going to say is, I can't remember if Anne put links, but there is this information is available on the website, these traits, the rubric, how to score the ER item on a GED Ready. That's all available.
Thank you. Would it be possible, Anne, to maybe send us just those couple of links that are from the website? And for the entire audience that's joined us here, we will, in a follow-up email, send through those links to them, if it's allowed, so that they can at least use it for their marking and to review for themselves, because it really is a very useful tool.
Of course, I'll put that in my deck so that it will be all in one package.
Okay, so we will distribute that slide deck to everybody that has attended. This is a question, I don't know who wants to answer it. It's a bit of a contentious, I don't know, it just depends on the teacher or the student, but Tanya Goodman wants to know, do you have a suggestion as to whether students should be encouraged to do one subject at a time or more than one?
Yeah, Anne can chime in as well. It depends on the student. It depends on the teacher. Different things are right for different students. If one student gets it's easier for them to focus on one topic, drive towards that goal, get some success, and then continue on. Great pathway for them. If it's a student who gets bored easily with one subject, having multiple subjects is important to them, to their study, or they have to move, more quickly and they really need to take those tests closer together, then that might be right for that student. So that would be my response. Anne, anything to add?
Yeah, I recently talked to a teacher who was telling me about how their program utilizes the GED Ready and the GED test to help progress their students through. And so what they do is they would give the GED Ready, all 4, to their students. And then whichever subject got the highest score will be the last that they will recommend that they take the GED test for, because that's the best feel good. The second best score is what they will start with, and then the third best, and then the worst, and they'll go on like that. So they're trying to make sure that the student is doing well, but then when they tackle that really hard one, which in the States is usually math, that will probably come in between so they can take some more time, but end on a high note. So it varies on the students, but that's one approach that I thought was quite interesting and useful.
Okay, thank you. I see we've only got a couple of minutes left. So I think we should just take 2 more questions. The first one is for Lindsay. Lindsay, Laza says, where can I get the calculator that I need for the test? And is it only available in the big cities of South Africa? And in which shops can I get it?
Okay, so for international students, you may not take any calculator into the test. There's an on-screen calculator that you can use. And we've got a guide on how to use the on-screen calculator that you can practice before your test. But for any GED test, no student can take a calculator into the test. So don't worry about CNA, there's no need to buy one.
So we're not buying any calculators at all. We're doing everything online.
Yes.
Great. Just to cover 2 questions myself quickly. So where are you based? And what is the official website of the GED in South Africa? So we're based in Norwood in Johannesburg. And the official website for both South Africa and for Namibia is www.ged.org.za. It's www.ged.org.za. So I just want to ask one last question. Debbie van Heerden asks, when will the GED have more subjects available other than the 4 that are currently available?
That is not on our radar right now. We have no plans to.
So there's no plans at all. These are the subjects. They cover everything that you need to know, and that is it. So,
Can I just add to that, Sean?
Yes.
Just really quickly. So there was a little bit of confusion. We moved in the old GED exam. There were 5 subjects. We moved to 4 subjects. We actually have 5 subjects. We just moved to 4 tests. So it was broken out. Reading and writing were 2 different tests. We've combined those into one, and we put some reading skill measurement across the GED exam. So we haven't cut down the number of subjects. It's the same number of subjects, just divided differently in how you take the test.
Okay, excellent. Well, I think the time is up. We have recorded this webinar. We will be making it available together with Anne's slide deck and all her tips for the ER part of the test. We'll be making everything available through an email to everyone that did register for this webinar. We will also make it available on GED South Africa on the Facebook page. So again, it's the best place to follow us for all information on Facebook, GED South Africa. Our phone number is, as you can see, there's 011-7280-212. And if you need anything or you want to ask anything, you're more than welcome to phone us or to email us on info@ged.org.za. We always respond very quickly. And so if you need anything, feel free to contact us. We're here to help you, whether you're a prospective student or you're an existing student, or even if you've already graduated and are unsure what to do going forward in order to apply to study further. We're here to help you, and we will help you in any way possible. Just a big thank you to CT and to Anne, all the way from the USA, answering these questions that we couldn't have answered better. And Lindsay from South Africa for answering all the South African specific questions. If you have any further questions, feel free to email us. We'll be happy to answer your questions. Thank you very much for all your time, and have a good afternoon and good evening, and CT and Anne, good morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.